Welcome to another Monday mindfulness meditation. So if you have your microphone open, you might like to mute it for the period of our practice. And when we open the circle for sharing after the practice, then that will be a time to share your voice. Oh, I'm seeing maybe a few newcomers here, so welcome if you've never been here before. It's great to have you with us. And welcome to everybody else. All right, so I wanted to just say before we go further that our next session, which is in 2 weeks, I will be leading an in-person retreat at Ghost Ranch here in northern New Mexico. And several of you who have offered in the past to lead the group while I'm not here, when I'm not here, are going to be with me. So I'm curious if one of you would like to take charge that week, maybe along with you, Kendra, on the bells and the tech support. But sit with that and we'll circle back to that question at the end of our time today. But I just want to plant that seed. So yes. I came back to you last time and shared the first part of my prologue of the book that I've been working on for the last few years and is now getting ready to come out slowly. And I wanted to actually read you the second half of the prologue. It's really a joy to share my writing with you, and where we left off last time had to do with incomprehensible suffering. And so to sort of carry that a little bit further and not leave you on that note, the book will be addressing incomprehensible suffering that we are experiencing in relationship to the earth in these times, in a number of ways, but it will also, I hope, as I hope all of the meditations that we do together here will inspire us to face into that suffering and take up the charge of global healing the way that we are being asked to in these times. So this is where the prologue leads. Everyone with eyes to see and a heart that cares knows that the body of our Mother Earth is being abused beyond recognition. It pains many of us physically to feel what the earth has to endure. Bearing witness to Earth's suffering, we often find ourselves personally embodying the issues that are calling to be healed collectively. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, once said, "What do we most need to do for the healing of our world?" And he replied, "What we most need to do is hear within ourselves the sound of the earth crying." And so it is with me, hearing within myself the sound of the earth crying. I hope to find a way to soothe those tears. I sought a path of service and then found myself on an actual path, climbing high into the Himalayas more than 30 years ago, one that would prove to be life-changing. Initially, the path I found led to the proverbial old wise man in a cave. Carrying my anguish for Mother Earth, I could hardly believe I had been given this opportunity. Questions I had yet to formulate or speak out loud had been burning in my heart, along with deep yearnings for a larger purpose. But it wasn't until I was walking up the highest mountains in the world that my life's guiding question crystallized. Undertaking a spiritual pilgrimage, we ask ourselves to clarify what we are seeking. What unanswered question is probing us, pushing us to this path? Once our direction is clear, even if we have no idea how we will get there, the universe can respond and clues start to come in. It's as if a magnetic force is drawing us it is as if a magnetic force is drawing to us whatever we need to fulfill our intention. I was compelled to make this pilgrimage, but only had a vague sense of those larger forces pushing me along. When I reached the old man in the cave at the rooftop of the world, there was a moment that came as surely as it must when we are touching the mythic dimensions of our lives. And I was invited to ask him my question. In response, I was given an impossible assignment, nearly as formidable as weaving straw into gold. Had I known what it would take, what this journey of a lifetime would ask of me, and how I would be stripped of all I held most dear, I might never have undertaken it. Traveling into remote regions of the world to fulfill my assignment with no guidelines and no one to tell me how, I was tested again and again. It was an alchemical rite of passage that took me beyond my ideas of how and what to do as I moved into wholly new inner and outer terrain. I learned to listen to myself, yes, but also to the land, to the ancestors, the elders, the activists, and to regular folks all around the world who care about this beautiful blue-green planet we call home. I had to make relations with strangers, overcome my fears, and reach out across our differences with respect and humility to fulfill the sacred task I had been given by the old wise man in the cave. Time and again, I had to let go and trust that Earth herself was guiding me. Slowly, my life was tempered into a living prayer to Gaia. In the end, the path that began in a cave at the rooftop of the world wound around the entire planet. I traveled from America to Africa, from Asia to Australia, passing through disillusionment and despair to elation and deep fulfillment. I lost the path. I fell off the path. And still, I kept hearing that call, responding to a summons from the earth. Perhaps you hear it too. This is my story, my attempt to articulate a new path of awakening that is responsive to the call of these times. I offer it to you that we may find our way together. As I read it, I want to cry. That weaving straw into gold has been such a challenge and such a gift. So this is the kind of the ground that I come to you standing on and invite you to join me on this path of collective awakening that we're trying to sort our way through in these times. And in service to the suffering, the incomprehensible suffering that we are so deeply aware of in these times. And that phrase that I started out with around how sometimes we personally feel and are aware of embodying the issues in ourselves that need to be healed collectively. And I'm curious how that is for you. it is certainly true for me that, and maybe it comes from aligning so directly with Gaia in, response to what I'm hearing and seeing going on in the world and have for so long. But I do feel, I do personally feel that pain in myself and in my body. And I am aware of patterns and habits in myself that, compromise my health in the same way that, and my overriding of that, my ignoring of that, and just going on overworking the way that I do. I don't know if any of this is resonating with any of the rest of you, but that's my pattern. And it's so chronic and such a habitual pattern that it's very hard to change, even if I know I have to. And this is also mirroring what we are knowing we have to change in relationship to Mother Earth because of how her health is in decline. So there's that interface. And the practice of mindfulness that we do here is a method or a path to address that suffering. The practice of mindfulness allows us or teaches us to face into our those patterns. It helps us, because we can kind of, when we practice mindfulness, we can become more aware of what's happening as it is happening. And the tendency to override things or push them away or ignore them is, more obvious. So I was reminded in contemplating all of this today that of the core teachings of the Buddha, which are the Four Noble Truths, the truth of the existence of suffering, the truth that there is a cause of that suffering. So we recognize that there is suffering in ourselves and in the world. And we also recognize that that suffering is coming about. And this is where the practice comes in, to determine for ourselves what is the source or the origin of that suffering. They say in the teachings, and I'm telling you this, but I want you to find it for yourself. They say in the teachings that the suffering is emerging out of our craving and our attachment to having things be a certain way. And that connects with our insistence on being a separate, independent self, because we don't recognize the interconnected web of life. We are compelled mostly by our attachment to our sense of self, our ego. So we want things to be a certain way to satisfy that ego, that craving, that attachment. And this is the kind of fundamental source of the suffering. which we actually can see pretty clearly expressed in the way that in the collective, with the powers that be taking us down. And so working with that. The third noble truth has to do with realizing that everything is impermanent, and that when we can see into our attachment and our craving and our those poisons that keep us going around and around, trying to satisfy that little self that wants things to be a certain way, that we can release into something so much larger, that the nature of that suffering is impermanent, just like everything. And that there's like the parting of the clouds, those clouds that come and go. And for a moment, if we're lucky, we glimpse something so much larger that is our unconditioned nature, which is always present. That's our Buddha nature, they say. This is the quality within us that is our Buddha nature, that is awake. And that this is the other beautiful news, is that with discovering a path like the path of this meditation practice, or any kind of way to cultivate our wisdom and our awareness, and to live not just for ourselves, but for the benefit of others, that we care so much that we would do that we enter a path that is the path of awakening, and that we can be free. We can live in such a way that we are actually contributing to the healing of the world, instead of contributing to the more suffering. I hope this is making sense. You with me? Okay, good. So seeing into the nature of our own suffering is actually possible through stopping, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, stopping. When we come to our cushion, we come to this next hour and a half, and we let go of all of the habitual patterns. And we come to wake up, and we stop for this time. And when we do stop, we have a chance to glimpse this, as Charles Eisenstein would say, more beautiful world, our own awakened nature. And in that spaciousness, it's possible for the transformation that we're seeking, the change we're needing, to be realized. And the habits that, as I say, keep us going around and around, they start to release. They start to loosen their hold. And we realize we have a choice. We can taste something else. And from my own experience with this, it takes courage. It takes courage, because we're really asking ourselves to transform some very deep-seated patterns. And we don't like that. It's like breaking an addiction. It's not easy. That's where Sangha comes in. That's where, when we come together, it's much easier because we're not just all on our own. And we're doing this not only for ourselves, and I speak for myself, the need to make change in myself. I know that if I do this, I'm doing it not just for me, but I'm doing it for Mother Earth. I'm doing it for all beings. Because we're connected, because that sense of self is an illusion. Truly. So let's practice now, and practice breathing, practice stopping, practice breathing, practice coming back to the present moment over and over again as a method to come into ourselves in such a way that clarity about the origin of our suffering might dawn. And when we touch that knowing, that place of, oh yeah, aha, that's it, then we can rest in that place. We don't do anything. We just rest right there. And feel it, so that we have the chance of experiencing that pattern, whatever that pattern of suffering is, completely. Because it's not until we experience it completely that it has a chance to unravel and transform and no longer condition us. So that's why we keep coming back over and over and over, with all of our courage and all of our love for the world. And every time we see our minds getting caught up in thinking about this or that, we just come back to the breath. Easy, come back to the breath. Start over. Recognize, return, and rest. And trust the process, the path of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who have gone before us and have shown that this naturally leads to liberation. So that's our assignment.